You look good, man.
Thank you. Well, we didn't go live. I didn't do that little 30-second countdown, but we are live for the first ever installment of Conversations with Bob and Phil. And so just to give a little background, we're both co-chairs of the Conference Experience Committee for Eastern EACE. And so we thought, what would be a great way to build up hype and build up a little bit of excitement for this conference that we are co-chairing, or the experience part, then starting a new Facebook Live, aka will be posted later series. And so just to give a little background, my name is Philip Wilkerson. I'm an industry advisor at George Mason Career Services, working particularly with students in media, arts, design, sports and rec, and hospitality and tourism. It took me about 6 months just to figure that all out, but I'm glad I can do that and really say that very articulately. But before we get into it, Bob, go ahead and give the viewers a little background on who you are.
Thanks, Philip. I'm Bob Ballard. I'm the director of the Office of Career Advancement at Rowan University, working as our Central Career Center. Real excited to be here and just excited to work with Philip and such amazing guests and just talking about Eastern EACE and careers in general.
Well, great. So as you know, this is a live show on Facebook, but what we'll be doing is after this show is finished, we'll be uploading this to the YouTube channel so that those that were not able to join us live will be able to have an opportunity to watch and really get these great insights from our guests that we have. And then, obviously we got some people tuning in already, and we can show them some love right here. Show the comments. Thank you so much for joining us, Jennifer. And so we were really, really excited to launch this. So before we get into the show, me and Bob would also want to take this opportunity to share a few announcements for Eastern EACE. And so a few announcements that we have is that if you are a member and you're checking your emails, you will know that we have decided to go virtual for the conference this year. So it will not be in the Borgata in Atlantic City, which is probably good for a lot of people that are going to lose a lot of money at the tables. But we're going to be going and doing it virtually in June. The date is not exact yet, but once that date has been confirmed in June, everyone that's a member of the association will be kept in the loop. Additionally, as you know, there's monthly Twitter chats, and the next Eastern EACE Twitter chat will be taking place on March 9th. So mark your calendar, set your phone reminders. I love that. It's a really great way to engage with people. I think those are the two announcements I have, Bob. What about you?
So tonight is the deadline for board nominations and award nominations. So there's so many great people we work with. I'm working with one right now. Don't be afraid to nominate him. But we are working with so many great people in the organization. So for awards, board seats, please make sure you get those nominations in by tonight. Eastern EACE, EACE.org for more information there. Also, professional exchange deadline is April 1st for our employer friends. Great opportunity to engage with a large-scale network, to have a most likely virtual kind of tour and run of the house of what you're doing at your organizations and how you can really partner with schools and other places to get that done. So check that out. Deadline is April 1st, all on the Eastern EACE website.
Well, without further ado, I know you didn't come to see me and Bob. You wanted to tap into these guests, even though I wore this blazer and I'm looking sharp today.
Sharp.
But we're going to get into it. And so we thought, what would be a great way to launch this new series, then combining both past and present, the presidents, so that makes sense, but both past and present. And so Bob and I we were just so blessed to have two guests with us. So we're going to have a two-guest episode, and we have both the current president and our first ever Eastern EACE president join us. So I have the pleasure introducing the first president, which is the lovely Marva Gumbs Jennings. Now, she currently works as the managing director of interdisciplinary studies and strategic initiatives at the George Washington University. And I know to say the because I used to work there, and I know they're very, very particular about that. But she is a great colleague, and I'm just so glad that we can connect in this virtual space. How about you, Bob?
No, I'm lucky enough to welcome Jill Milon, the current president of Eastern EACE. She is a career consultant at the Stevens Institute of Technology. I'm not sure if there's a "the" there, but I just want to not leave that out. In Hoboken, New Jersey. Jill is the consummate professional in pretty much all aspects of career development and counseling. And we're excited to have her today and all the amazing work that she's been doing as our president.
President-elect. I'm sorry.
President-elect. Excuse me. Jill. I nominated Jen. I know Jen Rossi Long's on the call. Jen, I'm really sorry. Please don't. I don't want any hate mail from people. My bad about that.
That's Phil's fault. So I'll take L's on that.
My fault. Sorry, Jen.
So technically this is the connection of the past and the future. So we're in the future here, Bob. So
we're future. I love it.
So let's not waste any more time. Let's bring our guest on. So we're gonna add them. Thank you so much for joining us. And so this is great. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. Me and Bob are just going to ask some questions. If you are joining us live, please share your questions in the chat. We would love to ask those too to have some engagement from the audience. But Marva, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So we're going back in our time machine. This is 1997. I think the golden age of hip hop, as they would say. Take us back to that space. What were you doing during that time? And how did this new role for you develop?
Oh, well, thank you, Phil and Bob, for having me on, and it's great to be with you, Jill. So we're going way back, not necessarily way back. I had been interested in advancing my leadership skills, so I really started with ECPO, which was the precursor to EACE. And had a number of different roles, including committee chair, et cetera, conference chair, and was fortunate enough to be elected to be the president-elect of Eastern EACE, while at the same time there was a lot of conversation going on about Eastern EACE and the Mid-Atlantic Group, MACE. Because a number of us were dual members. I was as well. And so there was a survey that was done by some of the industry leaders and much more data gathered about the interests of folks and the outcome being, let's merge the two organizations. So there was a president-elect of MACE and a president-elect of ECEN at the time, I believe. We were ECEN at the time. Well, what to do? You've got two president-elects. What do you do? So the decision was made, sort of a one-time decision, to have a runoff. And whoever was successful, the first successful person, the other person would simply follow and be the president-elect next the following year. And so that's how I came to be the first president of Eastern EACE in that sort of runoff scenario. And I'm so grateful for members for putting their trust in me to shepherd this new organization that was the merger of really two very interesting and very, very different cultures. And I was really fortunate in working with the president-elect, who then succeeded me in being the president. And because my basic contention was, let's just run this as a co-presidency because of the succession planning piece or whatever. And I think that really made for a wonderful, smooth transition. But that was quite a time. And I have many fond memories.
I love it.
No, that's fantastic. It's really, really interesting. Jill, talk about how you got into Eastern EACE. What made you think, I want to get involved more? And did you ever think that you would be president-elect? Very important. I use that elect term there.
Yeah, make sure you use that elect. I don't want Jen Rossi Long coming and get me. So actually, my very first experience was attending an Eastern EACE conference as a new professional. And I actually met Marva at that very first conference. And she was the past president at the time. So that was my very first conference in 1999. I haven't missed a conference since. So although I think that the world was trying to make me miss last year's conference because we had a power outage and I only got to join for one day virtually, but I was still there. That was my very first experience with Eastern EACE. And I said, wow, this is something that I should really get involved with. And so I talked to some people about, hey, I'd like to get involved. What can I do? And I joined the Professional Exchange Committee. And there were some changes that were happening, and the person had to step down from chairing that committee. So I went from being a member of a committee to chairing a committee all very, very quickly. And as a new professional, it was one of the best experiences because I didn't have any experience managing other folks and managing a team and a big effort. So I learned a whole lot really fast, and I had some great folks that I worked with. And my board liaison was fantastic, and really helped to guide and really taught me so much. Did I ever think I'd be president? No. I never thought that would happen in a million years. I'm so excited. If you just take a look at the list of past presidents, it is amazing. And to just have my name be among those names is just truly, I mean, you have folks like Marva and Manny Contaminolis and Sam Radcliffe and Adrian Alberts. And I mean, I could go on and on and on. And it's just such an honor.
I love it. And one of the things, I think about, being the first, I was probably going to say that you all know that I'm a member of Alpha. And so we're the first, we're used to being the first. I had to throw that in there. Irrelevant, totally irrelevant to this conversation. But, being this merger, right? And Marva, and you had to start new initiatives, right? And coming into, you set goals. What was some of the first things that you thought of? Like, this is a new merger, this is a new role. What was some of the things that you wanted to kick off with this newly formed organization?
Well, I think the first thing that I did after I said, oh, holy heck, this is not business as usual. I actually, for the new board, we had a professional come in and guide us through a strategic plan. And also heavy on the merger of very, very different cultures. Mm-hmm. And so my first board meeting, I came out of it saying, the phrase that I don't want to hear is, we used to do it this way. Mm-hmm. Because I know how that, we could easily fall into that. And the board members at the time were absolutely wonderful, really excited to blend, but as well as, make some inferences and also really just move in a different kind of direction, because now we had more people, we could do a lot more, and it was really exciting. So that year really was all about blending. I mean, we kept and did some of the similar things that we'd always done, but now you're going from smaller organization to how do you accommodate a bigger conference with more people, and all of that. So it was really the blending of the cultures, really a lot more communication than ever, to really bring people together. And I'd like to think we were successful enough that we could continue to exist. But that was sort of the first, was really, really important. Just not to say, okay, we're here, we're going to do what we usually do. No, this is a totally new and different direction. We've got to listen to what people said by voting to merge, and then we need to move from there.
Real quick, I have a follow-up question. You said the blending of two cultures, and I said that twice, and I was really interested to know, what were those two cultures?
I'm not sure. It was a long time ago.
I was wondering, the West Coast, East Coast culture.
Definitely distinctive cultures. And just because I belong to both, and I floated back and forward, so I was much more actively involved with EACEN at the time than I was with Mid-Atlantic. It just depends. It really was how people, what the personalities of the organizations were, and they were very different. I had the opportunity, because of where New England was, most of my experience with that group was that we were up in New England, New Hampshire, doing things in Maine, which comes with its own distinctive culture, and then doing things in the mid area, which was exceptionally different. And also, I was one of a few African Americans that were part of the group, so that was different and huge as well. And some of the leaders at the time, I'm really thankful to them for recognizing. Very similar to Jill, I went to a conference and people started singling me out and saying, "Why don't you do this and why don't you do that?" And I'm like, "Whoa!" But I am glad they persisted. I'm really glad they persisted.
No, that's fantastic. And obviously a testament to all the groundwork that you and your colleagues laid. Jill, as we go into a new normal, we talk about new normal and unprecedented times. As you are kind of going into the presidency role and with your engagement, what's the one skill you think that a president, especially of a large kind of working organization, needs overall? So if I said, Jill, what's that one thing a president needs?
I think right now it's to be agile. I think that when I was nominated for this role and when I accepted, there was no pandemic. So, I was like, wait a minute here, what did I sign up for? But I think that just being agile, especially where we are now and just in general, like to be able to look at things and say, okay, well, let's move in a different direction. Let's make sure we're doing things for the right reasons and, moving as we should. It's like Marva says, it's funny. One of my favorite sayings is like, you always have to question why you're doing something. It's just not, you just do it just because you always do it. You want to make sure you're understanding why and making sure it's for the right reasons. But you want to be sure that you can be nimble and, be able to move as we need to. It's such crazy times. And even with the vaccine, I think it's changed us. It's changed us all, who we are, how we work, and everything. And I think we just need to be agile. And I think that's really important in just leadership in general. And so that's what I'm hoping to bring and to bring that perspective and to make sure that you all hold me accountable for that and making sure that we are agile and able to move at the drop of a dime, but being thoughtful too.
No, thank you for that. Obviously, you do it so easily with a smile. Everyone, I know some of us talk about how the president seems to be very calm when we're like, oh, things are changing rapidly, but they seem very calm and happy and on top of it. So no, it's something as the membership, we really appreciate that ability to keep a steady hand, but also understand that there are times that you need to pivot, full stop and pivot, even if that wasn't necessarily your choice. So no, thank you for that.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to copy and paste that question because I think that's great. What was one of the leadership skills that you think was, developed or really essential in your time as the Eastern EACE president?
I would probably say listening and mingling, particularly because, it's especially in the beginning when people were coming together. They didn't circle each other by any means, but it was very different seeing very different people. But of course, there was a group of people who belonged to both, and that was a really wonderful sort of way to centrally have everyone kind of come together. So that was pretty important. So the listening pieces, the mingling pieces, being very, very open to understanding the value of both organizations. And, even though I didn't want to hear, we used to do it this way, still taking the best of both and not sort of throwing the baby away with the bathwater kind of thing. That was pretty significant as well. And the only other thing that on a personal level, that I really paid attention to and was as active as possible was the give back piece. I mentioned a little earlier that several leaders, when I first came to the organization, people who looked for me, singled me out, had conversations just to understand my background. That was my goal. And I made it a habit at every possible meeting, conference or whatever, that I would meet and have an opportunity to have some conversation, coffee or tea with newcomers to really understand what they were looking for, tell them the story of how, if they were interested in being developed professionally, that serving on a committee, whether it's a conference committee or some other committee, and lending their voice to their profession was really important. And I took great joy in that, because I remember the days of being, in the reception, whether it's cocktail or not, feeling like all these people know each other. I don't know who to go up to, and so I really did try to take advantage of looking for the people who really weren't as connected.
Yeah, and I think that's the most exciting part for me as well. I love to see like somebody. I think of one person just the other day who came up to me at a conference and said, "Jill, I want to get involved." Now I think he's saying, "Jill, leave me alone." And I'm not really sure when he said, "Jill, I want to get involved," I'm not really sure if he knew what he was saying and who he was saying it to. And I think, that is so exciting just to see the growth. I've talked to a lot of members about leadership roles within Eastern ACE. And I said, this is using Eastern ACE in helping you grow your Rolodex is one thing. I have a bunch of people that I can pick up the phone and call if I have a question about my day-to-day job. And I could say, "Hey, what are you doing at your school?" Or "How does it work here? What are the trends that you're seeing?" But also just to be able to build that skill set that you might not get at your regular day in and day out job. Like if you didn't have experience, with a budget before, well, you have opportunities to learn about that and be able to take that into your professional life to take you to that next level within your job. And I think that's just really exciting.
I'm glad you said something like that, Jill, because I think there are a lot of people who are waiting to be asked, but there are a lot of people who just want to come up and do that too. So hopefully we're giving people permission
Absolutely.
to do that today.
Absolutely.
No, that's fantastic. And please feel free to reach out to anyone on the board about getting involved. I mean, the more the merrier for sure. And Jill is definitely co-signing that. All right, I have a question, but I'm going to keep you to one-word answers. So it's a one-word answer here. What does Eastern ACE mean to you? One word though.
Family.
Oh, you stole my word.
That was easy, Bob. I like that question. I was like, oh no, one word is not possible.
Community.
I was about to say, dang, that was a good question, Bob. I'm gonna have to like copy and paste all your questions, but my question, and I think it'll be for both of y'all too, before we kind of close out, is you said a lot of the leadership, how in this organization bleeds over and translates over into your normal 9-to-5s. So can you all both give us an example of where this leadership now showed up in other parts? And you gave a great example about the budget part, but just another example where it's like, wow, this was something I was doing with Eastern ACE. Now it's showing up in my normal 9-to-5.
I would probably say there are several things. Program planning, project management, supervision or management or coordination of volunteers, the introduction and understanding of new technologies, learning about new trends because of all the speakers and all of that come to conferences. And most importantly, having the opportunity to have, I think Jill mentioned it, have the opportunity to really hone in on best practices and do benchmarking because of all the sheer number of people that we meet. And I used to do that at conferences, whether Eastern ACE or NACE. I go through the book. And in those days, we used to have attendance lists. And I would actually put notes onto people's doors that I wanted to meet because I would go ahead of time, or actually, I wouldn't probably do that. I think I did that in the old days, but in the newer days, I would say to the hotel folks, can you give this note to such and such? And whether it was employers or college people that I wanted to meet and have coffee with because I wanted to pick their brain and do some have some best practices exchange or do some benchmarking. So, I mean, there's so much. I could go on and on, but I'll stick to those.
Yeah. And I mean, I think there is so much. I think if you look at just a regular job description now, your current job description, or a job description that you aspire to be, I think you can find all of those different skills that someone is looking for in opportunities in Eastern ACE. So I think it's a great way just to continue to build upon that. And I think that there's just so much, and Marva hit on so many things, and there's so many more that I'm probably not even thinking of. But it really just gives you that ability to see, you know, I mean, I helped to plan a conference, and you know, that's not something that a lot of us do. And of course now we're going virtual, and you know, having done a virtual conference last year and now everything virtual, obviously, you know, it's a whole new world. So I think that it's there's so many skill sets that I see that I use on a daily basis that I have attributed to something that I've learned at Eastern ACE through my leadership roles.
I think one of the things that I got at Eastern ACE is the ability to look at and review our contract, those speaker contracts. And
That's
so
true.
the legal pieces as well. You may not, you know, get to do that at certain levels within how you work within your institution. So I was just kind of trying to think about some of those things.
That's true.
Marva, don't lie. Did you, after reading those contracts, think, why am I not speaking? Why am I not going on tour and doing some of these things?
And she should. And
no.
she
Yes,
should.
of course.
Not at all. Not at all. But it was a lot of fun seeing all of that come to fruition. When you do plan a conference, and what goes wrong, and how, for the most part, if you're a conference planner, you're probably not seeing most of the conference. But you're working with such the whole word community. You're working with such great folks, the treasurer, the chairs. There's so many people who bring that together, and for the love of it. I mean, this is not pay. And so for the love of seeing that you are continuing to push the profession, you're continuing to raise the issues that are so very important to everyone that's attending, from employer to college member. And you know, there's that struggle with, you know, how can I make this much more valuable? So, you know, what are themes? And, you know, there are people who have been in the profession for a while. How is information more valuable to them than the newcomer? You know, so that all of that sort of interesting, healthy debate, I think, is helpful in any kind of leadership position, and that you bring back to a college as you're working with students who are at different points in their progression through an institution. So there's a lot of translation.
Well, I guess, you know, we got one question. We had a wonderful conversation. I think, you know, we squeezed this into 30 minutes, and we definitely could have done longer, but, you know, this is our first time and we really enjoyed this. But so we'll say, let's say someone jumped into this watching this presentation at the very last minute, and they were like, oh my goodness, I missed the wonderful Marva Gumbs Jennings and Jill. I missed what they had to say. But you could share one gem with them. What would be the one gem that you would share with this late attendee that just gets one nugget of your knowledge, your expertise, before we close out? For both of y'all too.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you get here on time next time. Just saying.
You tell them, Bob. You tell them.
Because I'm the picture of punctuality, obviously. Sorry.
I would say that it's just that Eastern ACE is a family environment where you will give your time, your talents, your efforts, but you get so much more back, professionally as well as personally.
There's so much, but I certainly agree with you, Jill. I would also say it's okay to be selfish, that some of the things that you may not be getting in your current role and you're desiring to advance, you can really utilize your professional association to equip you further. Also, you make lifelong friendships that are just absolutely wonderful. And I'm not only talking about professional friendships, really personal friendships as well. And that's really important.
Well, no, so we thank you both for joining us today. I'm going to let Philip close us out, but real quick, just a reminder, board nominations, award nominations tonight, get them in. We have so many great colleagues, get that in. The next Twitter chat is on Tuesday, March the 9th. Please check that out on Twitter. Make sure you use appropriate hashtags, #EasternAce. Also, those Eastern EACE polls going out, make sure you answer them. They do a lot to make sure that the organization can pivot to make sure that we're serving as many people as possible. And I'm going to let Philip close this out. Go ahead, man.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for allowing Bob and I to experiment with this new thing that we're doing with video and trying out and, you know, being the guinea pigs of this interview. But the knowledge that you shared is so, I was tempted to take notes, but I couldn't because I need to focus. But this is great. This is a great conversation. And you know, I did have a pleasure of working with you, Marvin. Hopefully you got to see that I grew a little bit and, you know, it became a little bit better of a leader. And I think what I would say that I will pull this back around is that I think that from the time I was at GW to now is because of getting involved in other leadership opportunities to really, you know, stretch myself and push myself. And so I'm just really appreciative of your time. I'm really appreciative of the association's time and just everyone just going with this. And we couldn't have started this off without two better guests. This is great. I'm really excited. And so if you really enjoyed this, we'll be doing this again March 19th, you know, speaker to be determined, but we definitely want to engage. And, you know, as Bob said, please get involved, all the different things, nominate people, check your emails, you know, send questions and really, really tap into this wonderful resource that this organization has to offer.
No, be the reason someone gets rewarded for all their amazing work. So if you're not going to nominate them for a board seat or nominate yourself, that self-nomination thing sometimes goes a long way. Put that stuff out there, have that confidence. I'm telling you, there's such amazing work going on in this conference, this organization, and just in general. And to say thank you to both of you again, this was an absolute pleasure.
And can I say one other thing? I forget, for folks who are nominating themselves, please know that you can talk to people to hear what they've done. And can really give you some strategies about making it work, because I think sometimes you're thinking that's too much and you don't know what the much is. But these people have figured it out. They figured out how to solve balancing their time or not. But thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you both so much. We love the idea. I'm so excited to continue it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.